Welcome to the final part of the Rolex Air King design series. We are done with the design part, so today we are going to be rendering in Keyshot. So go ahead and open Keyshot, and this is the default workspace. I don't usually use Keyshot a lot. I don't do a lot of renders because I'm mainly just an engineer, so designing is my part, not so much for the rendering part. But don't worry if you're a beginner. Keyshot is very friendly to beginners, to pretty much everybody. You don't need special skills to be able to use this. So let's just dive right into it. And I'm going to attach the card model that we created down below so that if you haven't followed through the tutorial, you can just use it. But I would highly recommend that you watch the tutorial and learn how to create the watch. So you're gonna import. So just go to File and then Import. And I'm going to, so I did a couple of assemblies where I have the clasp closed, slightly open, completely open, and so forth. But we're gonna go with the closed one because that's what I taught in the previous tutorials. So just import the model, and then on this part, I want you to deselect snap to ground, which is usually by default selected. And then the up orientation is usually Z plane, the Z axis, I mean. But you're going to switch to Y because of how we're going to be positioning our watch. So just select Y, and then you're going to leave these ones as default, and then import. And now we have our model. This is what it looks like with just basic materials, which is mostly like something like color. And the best thing about retaining the structure, the naming structure, is you get the specification tree that you had in Catia just imported here. So it's pretty easy for you to be able to organize or locate your object. So I like that about Keyshot. The first thing we're going to do is to group these objects because you have quite a number of links and screws, as you can see, and they are all going to be the same material. So what I'm going to do, because the links are so many, we can select everything else and just invert selection. So you can select the middle case. I'm selecting from this tree right here, and then the dial, all the three hour, minute, and second hand, the crystal gasket, the ring, the crown, and the case back. And you're also going to scroll down and locate clasp 1 and clasp blade 2. So we had the clasp blade somewhere down here. So there's the clasp cover. Let's see, these are the easy links. So we have clasp blade 1 and clasp blade 2. So I'm also going to select that. You just press Control, same way you do everywhere else, just press down the Control button and select all the items. So now that they are selected, you're going to press Control Shift I to invert selection, so that now everything else that was not selected is now selected. To rotate your model, we're using the left mouse button for those who haven't used Keyshot before. To dolly in and out, you're going to use the middle scroll button. And then to pan, you're also going to press down on that middle button and pan around. Okay, now that we have everything else selected, we're going to group them. And you just hover and right click. And then you're going to select Add to Group. Then you're going to select the Rolex assembly, this one right here, and then select New Group. We're going to call this links and screws. Although we did add the covers, the clasp covers, but they are all going to be the same material. But you can divide them, but I just choose to put them. So you can maybe write links, screws, and clasp. And then you're going to click OK. So we have a new group here, and now you can see we have reduced the number of items that are going down the tree, and select OK. it's going to reflect right here, as you can see. Now it's going to be easier to apply the materials. Now, before we start applying the materials or doing something else, we're going to set up our camera. Right now, we're using the free camera where you can just rotate anywhere. And I just need to set up our rendering pose, I would call it. So we're going to select Add New Camera using this icon, and we're going to name it Main Camera. So right now it's unsaved. I'm going to drag this to my left side, which you can do by just clicking and dragging. And if you want to return back to default, you can just come here and select default and revert, and it's just going to go back in. Or you can just, if you pull it out, you can just click on this icon. And if you, where is this option? There's an option to allow docking. So on window, we have here enable docking, and you can dock windows in. So I'm just going to pull it to my left side because I need some more space. And then we are on the camera, main camera. And I'm just going, you can select a different pose, but for us to be able to walk through the tutorial, maybe it's better if we just all do the same pose. So I just wanted something that is showing the front face and also the back of the clasp. So you're kind of seeing the links, the clasp, and the front of the face. So if you're used to Catia, it can be a bit challenging to maneuver in Keyshot. Just my view, Keyshot, SolidWorks, and other design softwares. I don't know why. So you can do a rough pose using this window, and then you can come here and use this position and orientation. So you can kind of see we have the distance, and then we have the azimuth. So you can kind of play around with this to see what is happening for each option. And you can use this to fine tune your model. So I kind of want it tilted upwards a little bit, but I want us to be able to see the other end of the watch. So you can see the end of the middle case. So only a little bit at the top, a little bit of the bracelet will be visible, say about that much. So much of the links is just down below. And then I'm going to pull it in like so that this part, the end of the watch, you can see slightly the ring right here. I think that's pretty good. We have it to inclined upwards. We can see the links. We can see this clasp, and we can see the front part of the face. So once you have everything that you wanted here, you're going to scroll down and deselect stay above ground, by the way, because if you select stay above ground and we are not using our ground, your object might be below ground, and when you render, you're going to get half an image. So make sure this is deselected. And then on the grid, we're going to select quarters. We're going to use this to make sure that our object is centered. So I'm just going to use the pan and kind of push it to be in the middle. So we have these two and then these two, so it's about right there in the middle. And we also check on the up and the bottom one. So I'm going to leave it at that. The last thing is the distance. Right now we are about 274. Maybe I can pull it a bit closer So let's try 240. I'm gonna go with 240. I wanted our object to be up close. Once you're done, you're going to save your current camera using this icon. And then we're going to lock it so that we don't accidentally move anything. So now if you go back to free camera, you are able to rotate your object when you're applying the materials or doing any editing work. But if you go to main camera, you're going to revert right back to this pose. Next, we're going to add some basic materials so that we can be able to add some lighting. Before we do that, we haven't turned off the quarters. So I'm going to unlock this main camera, and on the grade, we are going to return to none, and you can lock it now. So we're going to go to materials now. Select scene, and you'll be able to see individual items right here. I'm going to dock it once more. And we can do away with very basic materials that are found in the default Keyshot library. You don't need to go online, but we can do that if you want some advanced materials. So the first thing we're going to look for is steel brushed. And I think we're gonna go with this option for stainless steel circular brushed simple. And I'm going to drag this to the links and screws. I'm also going to drag it to the middle case. So I think we added the clasp covers to the link and screws, so we've got that covered. Then we're going to select steel polished. And you're going to select stainless steel polished. We're going to add that to the dial and also the clasp blades. So you can definitely drag it and drop it right here. But I don't know whether I have OCD or whatever, because if you drag it, for example, if I take this and drag it over to the blade, you can see it doesn't show up here. It kind of goes to the item that is inside. So you can see it goes to the pocket or whatever. So I need it to cover everything. So for it to cover everything, I prefer to drag all the way here. So if I take stainless steel polished and I drop it on the clasp blade, it goes to all items that are associated with that particular object. So it's kind of important to note that. I'm going to dock this once more. So we need that steel polished to both blades. So I'm going to select it once again, and I'm going to add it to clasp blades 2 and also to the crown. All right, now we need the dial. Or first we can start with the crystal gasket. So you're going to search for glass, and we're gonna go with glass basic white. Okay, basic white. Don't select the solid one, select just the basic one. There's a reason why I'm saying this. Then we're going to drop it on the crystal gasket. So you can see right here it have cleared up. You can now see the minute hand, the hour hand, second hand, and the dial. For the dial, we're going to give it just a black paint. You can select black, search for black paint. So I can select any. I can select this paint metallic black or the gloss one. I'm going to go with metallic because we're going to be adding a textured layer over to it. So I need this on the dial. This. All right, then for the hour hand, minute hand, and the second hand, we're going to open them because we're going to be adding different materials for the edge fillet and the pad. They all have the fillet and the pad. For the hour hand and minute hand, first we're going to search for gray color. We're going to say gray gloss, and you're going to select this paint gloss, which is gray, and you're going to add it to the fillet, both for the hour hand and for the minute hand. I just need the fillet. Looks like something is already selected. I'm going to deselect, then add this one right there. Then for these pads, we're going to add white. So just select white gloss. And select paint gloss white. Add it to all the 3 pads. Oops. Gonna undo that part. Just Control Z. All right, then for the second hand, this part is green, so you're going to select green gloss. Just select it and add it to the edge fillet. Okay, we're done with those. So now the dial, of course, we had used an image texture in Catia, and it's the same still image that we're going to use it here. So I'm going to attach it down below. So I've selected one image, and I've also kind of painted over some images to create a bump texture. So I'm going to attach the 2 images here. So you're going to select the dial, then right click, and then above here, you can see material, edit material. So it's going to take you to the material tab. Going to drag it to this side. Then you have properties here. The properties are for the basic black metallic paint that we added. We're gonna come up here. You have metallic paint, but we're gonna change it to flat. You can change it to flat, or you can change it to diffuse, but I feel like flat kind of pops it out at the very end. But first, let's work with diffuse. So you have diffuse, you're gonna go to texture, select color, and this is where you're going to locate the image which you're going to download down below, this particular one, and then you're going to double click on it. So as you can see, it's not properly centered. Okay, I can see we are still on the main camera. We can go back to the free camera to be able to rotate our object. So you see it's not centered. That's because it's centered on the model. You're going to change right here, center on part, and it's going to center on the dial. Next thing will be to, of course, increase its width, the circumference, because right now it's smaller than the dial. So down here you have size and mapping. And before we start to tamper with that, I'm going to hide the middle case, the crystal gasket, and the ring. So you can go to scene, and then this icon that looks like an eye, you can use it to show or hide an object. So hide the middle case, hide the crystal gasket, and also hide the ring. Now you have a very good view of your dial, and then you can go back to material. Then make sure the width and height is locked to the current aspect ratio. So then it's locked using this icon. So this to unlock or tie them together, whatever. Then you're going to increase it gradually until it reaches the very end. You can dolly in until you're able to see this part. So right above that point. Okay, so that's okay. You can increase the brightness and the contrast if you want. It's going to affect how the image looks. But in this case, I don't see the point in doing so. We are first going to leave it at 1. Each of this is going to be left at 1. There's an option to blend with color, but this time we are using this specific dial, so we don't need to blend with any other color. So next, you're going to select bump. And as I said, there's this image. I kind of just shaded over the other areas and only left the part where I want to be raised or bumped up. So you're going to select this image where you have placed it on your PC. And this bump, if you select it, you have an option here to increase the bump height. So we're going to, if you dolly in, you can now see this part number 6 is raised, number 9, number 3, and also this icon here. So I don't need to be too raised. So maybe we can do say 0.8. So kind of tone it down a little bit. Anyway, I leave that up to you. And I think our map here is kind of done. So the difference between diffuse and flat is if you choose flat, you can see it's kind of exactly the way it is. But the thing with flat is kind of acts like it kind of acts like a light. So even if when we go to lighting, you're going to understand what I'm saying. So at this point, just leave it at flat. So we have applied some simple materials. You can now show the middle case, the crystal gasket in the ring. So we have applied some basic materials, and now we can be able to go and add some lights and change our environment. So right now we are using the startup default environment. So I'm going to go to camera, switch back to main camera. For lighting, we're going to select product and leave it as it is. For image, we're going to use landscape 5.4 because our image is not very large. We're going to use 5.4, or you can use any other that you want. But because of the setting that we did with the distance of the camera, I'm going to select 5.4. We're going to go with photographic, but I'm going to switch to this option later on once we have done our proper lighting. So right now, let's stick to basic. Then now we can go to environment. Don't forget to save your work as you go. So for the environment, we have our startup environment here. I don't know whether it's an image that is used to light up our image, but we're going to set up our very own. So we need to have very specific lighting so we can get a better quality image. Right now it's looking a bit whitish. So even if you added materials, it still kind of looks very whitish. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is to switch from here, settings. We are going to switch from lighting environment to color. And then we're going to select, you can use white or black. So up here it's completely white. Down here it's completely black. And in this case, we're going to select black. So just drag it to this corner. You can see everything is 000. I think black is better personally, but you can use white if you want. And then we're gonna go to the HDRI editor. Unfortunately, for you to be able to edit the HDRI, you need to have the Pro version of Keyshot. If you don't have the Pro version, you can try lighting using a couple of lighting environments here. On this tab, You can see we have materials, we have colors, we have textures, we have environment. So you can kind of grab and drop any environment that you want right here. In fact, if you don't want to change this startup environment, you can just create a new one. We can opt to edit a new one. So you can come here and say, I don't want to duplicate. I want to create a blank environment map. And then we can name this main environment, so that you kind of have an option to go back to the default environment if you want to. And on this default environment, you can kind of just drag and drop any lighting environment that is available here. And you can be able to rotate it. If you don't know how to rotate, or you don't know the shortcut keys, you can press K. And basically it gives you all these short keys for you to be able to maneuver around Keyshot. So to remove this, just press K again. So you have this environment, you have a couple more, so you can select whichever one you want. And as you can see, it's kind of better than the one we had for startup. But in this case, we are going to create a new main environment. So now it's completely blank. We're going to select color, as I said, and we're going to select black. So we have it. And then we're going to go to HDRI editor. We're going to select the highest resolution right here. And then you can also select the color of this canvas. So right now it's kind of grayish and neutral color. So that's what is lighting up this watch. So if I select black, if I bring it all the way down, you can see it goes completely black. And this is where I was talking about between diffuse and flat. So for flat, you can see it's kind of lighting up. But if you go back to the material, this was the dial. If you select dial and edit the material and change this to diffuse, it goes completely black. We're gonna leave it like that so that we can be able to do proper lighting. So now we can go back to environment. And as you can see, our canvas is blank. It means we have no pin or light. We can start by adding our first pin. It seems this ring did not get the material we assigned. Let's check that real quick. We have the ring. Yeah, it's completely blank. So we can search for steel polished here from materials. We need steel polished. And we're going to select the stainless steel polished, and you're going to add it to the dial. To the ring, sorry, where is the ring? Right there. That looks better. And then we can go back to our environment. So we have our first pin, but as you can see, it's quite some harsh lighting. So we need to add fall off. So you can scroll down here, and on adjustments tab, you can see fall off. You're going to increase it to 1. So now we have soft light, and we're going to light up specific parts separately because we need this to appear like those you see in commercials or something, or on the websites. So there is a pin right here where you can set where you want this light to highlight. So when you select it, it's blue. So now it's selected, and you can click anywhere, and now you can highlight that specific part. So I'm going to start with these corners. Like I need to highlight like those places where you need very small lighting, because I don't want to start with areas where there's a lot of light that is falling over to the other parts. So I can first reduce this to 25 the radius, and the brightness is 1. So there are some adjustments you can use here, the transforms, to either move it side to side, or you can elevate it up and down. You have to remember you're going to treat this canvas as a 2D map, which is representing a 3D space. Because if I move this light all the way across, you can see it comes to the other side. So it's actually a 3D map mapped on a 2D plane. Okay. So once again, I'm going to select where I need this light to highlight. I need to highlight this corner on the other side. And then once I select that, I can now use this to adjust exactly where I want it to highlight. So I need the first quarter right there, plus this part of the middle case, and then moving it to the side kind of dictate how much of the light falls over. So I need just enough for that part only. I don't need it to fall over to the other parts of the watch. Okay, so you can see we've got that nice lighting, and now we can select this light and you can duplicate instead of adding another pin and having to make all the adjustments. All right, so you can select the light and then right click and duplicate. And now I can move this upwards. And I just need to light up that other side of the watch. I'm going to make this much smaller, say 20. And maybe we can highlight this part. I can use this to set exactly where I need the highlights to be, and then move it to the side like that. So much more that we have some lighting on that part like so. And then I'm going to reduce the brightness because I need this to be very subtle. So I'm going to make this say 0.8 so that we don't have shadows on that side. On this first pin, I'm going to duplicate, and then I need to highlight this part. So I'm going to try and make this half. So you can select half right here. You can also select the shape to be rectangular or circular. I'm going to leave it at circular at first. And then I'm going to adjust. I needed to highlight this part. If you lose track of where the light is, you can reselect where you need the highlight to be. So right up there. And then you can use this to just make subtle adjustments. I'm going to bring it down a little bit. Maybe increase this radius because now we are not highlighting this bottom part. You can also change its angle right here if you want it more on this side, or if you want it more on that side, you can do that as well. So So now that part is lighted up as well as this part. I can try playing with the brightness a little bit, say 1.5. All right, the first pane is the one I want to duplicate once again, and I need to highlight the ring now. And then I'm going to move it a little bit towards this side. As much high as I can get it. Okay, that's the highest point I can get it. Then I can check what happens with this pin. So it's pretty much lighting the same spot regardless of what point it is. So I'm gonna use the set highlight to change the position. So now that I've got it right there, I can try to make it half and make it rotate it downwards. See how that is going to work out. So when it comes to lighting, you're pretty much playing guessing games and just checking what is happening with the lights. There's no specific manual for this. So I'm highlighting this top part of the ring, and I think that's working. That looks good. Once again, duplicate, highlight this point, and there's a ridge that is remaining right there, so maybe I can close it by adding on to the radius. I don't want it to fall over much. Let's see, back to 25, maybe 20. You don't want much light falling over to the other parts. And then I'm going to use this to control it. So right about that point. I think I'm going to reduce the brightness because it's kind of merging with the other one. Let's try 0.7. All right. Duplicate, select this part, highlight that part. I'm gonna try and make it half, then change the angle. It seems even if I make it half, it's still falling over to the other side. I don't know. So let's work with the full light. It's okay. So I've highlighted this part. And we're just going to continue and highlight our ring completely. So we are using small lights, but many lights to highlight different parts of our project. And we're basically going to repeat this project, this part I mean, until we are satisfied with the lighting of the dial. I'm just clicking where I need the light to highlight, and then I'm using this slide buttons to adjust it to where I want it to be. You can also see from the pattern we are forming here how I said this is a 3D map mapped on a 2D plane. So we are highlighting this dial pretty nicely. And as you can see, the light is not falling much over to the other parts. So now we're down here. And this light is also lighting up part of our bracelet. Lastly, we have this part right here. And now our dial is nicely lit. Then there's this part, top part, where the crystal gasket is meeting the middle case. And I need to highlight that right quick. So, hold on, which is this? Okay. Undo that. I'm just going to duplicate this. And I need to highlight this top part. Don't know where I'm going to get it. Maybe I can turn off the other lights so I can see this one better. So I only have 17. So it's this top part of the dial that I want to highlight. So this brightness, maybe 1. I'm going to reduce the radius because I want very specific lighting. I need this part of the ring, the top part of the ring. And it's okay with lights up the clasp as well. But I still need to dial this down a little bit. Okay, 15 looks kind of good, but maybe that's too much. Let's try 0.8. This looks rectangular. I want circular. Circular lights. I don't know how I selected the rectangular lights. Okay, it's looking much more of what I'm trying to achieve. think I'm going to leave it at that point, but the brightness still kind of bothers me. Let's see. 0.6, yeah, 0.6 kind of much better than of what I'm trying to achieve. Then I want to put a lighting down here. So I'm going to duplicate this. And I'm going to select the light to come down here, this bottom part of the bracelet. I can hide this previous pin as well. Maybe I can make this -25. So I needed to highlight just the bracelet. .8. Now let's show the other lights, because I want to be able to see the development. So this part is the tedious part, and it basically carries the entire rendering process. Like, this dictates how good your product is going to look. Now we have this side and this crown and this side of the bracelet that we need to illuminate. So I'm going to select this pin and duplicate, and I'm going to select this side. I might have to hide all the other pins as well, because I need to check how much is falling over, how much light is falling over to the other parts, so we don't have excessive lighting. So we have that one light, as you can see, not much falling over to the other sides. So it's 25 in radius, 1 in brightness. Oh no, let me undo that. I think I was adjusting the previous light. So I need to select the light, the current light, and then now I can start adjusting. So right about the point where it just hits the side, like so. I don't need this much falling over to the other side. And then you can control if it goes up or down. So I need to light up the entire thing all at the same time. So I think that point. So we have this side profile, and also the crown, and a little bit of the clasp, and we don't have much follower on the other parts. However, I feel like maybe we should add the radius, or maybe the brightness. The radius does a good job. So now we have a much bigger light, and we have better lighting of the sides. I wanted to create a highlight at this point, these two horns. So I don't know, let's duplicate this and then select this top part. Just want this part, these two parts right here. Let's hide the other light as well. So I need to highlight these 2 points. I'm going to make it really small, like 20. I need it to be specifically on this spot. Maybe I can make it half and rotate. Before I rotate, let me make it bigger so I see which side it's illuminating when I turn it. So you can see from this highlight where the light is falling onto, and it's also adding a bit of highlight to this part as well. Now I can reduce this back to 20. I'm gonna leave brightness at 1. Let me see the effect if I make it full. Half. Okay. I think half is better. We don't have much light falling onto the other side. Let me try 25. So I wanted those parts to pop off, to show off. Let me see how it blends in with the previous lighting. I think that's good. We can now turn on all the other lights and see which other parts need additional lights. Remember, you don't have to do it specifically like me. You can just, I'm just showing you, like, you can highlight any part that you want. So it's up to you to see which parts you want to highlight and which parts, needs more lighting and things like that. But basically that's the process. You go about each and every part and then you are lighting it up. So we were completely in the dark and now you can see the other parts. So these parts we didn't highlight them a lot. It's kind of dark in comparison with the rest of the parts. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add 1 pin in the middle. And then of course I'm going to add fall off to 1. And I kind of need it to highlight this part. So I'm going to select set highlight. And then we're going to reduce the brightness to about 0.6. So this one light is kind of affecting everything that is in here. And then the light that we set to highlight the sides, I think it was this light. Was it? Yes, 19. It kind of needs to be more aggressive. It's too low. So maybe I can see if we work with 1. So that's much better. So that's the process. You can play around until you get the results that you want. And now let's start with this. Let's first go and edit a little bit of what we had. And once you're done with this, you can lock it. Okay, so that you don't change anything. And then right here, you're going to see this icon, and you're going to set it to click on it, I mean, so that you're going to generate the full resolution HDRI because you have edited it. Okay, now as you can see, this is the work we have done so far on the lighting. I feel like you can try to add a little bit more on this part. You can try to add a new pin. Trust me, soft light is always the best when lighting up most of these products. And then you can select to set highlight. You can try to highlight this part, so it's not so much dark. And then you can duplicate that. And you can try to highlight this part as well. If it's too bright, you can just dial down on maybe the radius, say 25 for the previous one as well, or 20 if you want it to be super specific to that part. So yeah, this is one way of lighting up. There is another method where you can set rectangular lights, and then you make it really large, like say 60, and then you make it to have if you select rectangular, you can see we have rounded corners. You can add the rounded corners as well as the fall off, and then it's going to light up like a large part of your watch. And then you're just going to have a few, instead of this where we have a lot of very many small circular pins. You can have about 6 or 8 of these large rectangular pins that are just soft light highlighting this side, down, up, maybe up here, and maybe one highlighting these links. So that's another way. But the one that I'm teaching you is just you have a lot of very small pins. So right here we have, I think, 19 because my counting is starting from 4. This is just like Katia. When you delete some pins, the counting kind of continues. It doesn't pick up from number 1 once again. So we have, you can have 20 something lights just lighting up your object depending on what you have. So we're gonna lock this for now, and as I said, click on this icon to generate a quality image. We need to edit our materials a little bit better now. So we're gonna go to scene, and the first thing we're going to go to is a crystal gasket. So it's a bit cloudy right now. So you're gonna go to material, edit material. And then this refractive index, it controls how much light is bending when it's going through this object. And because I need us to see this dial pretty clearly, we're going to dial this back to 1. Sorry, I mean 1. So we're going to make it super clear, like so. Or you can say 1.05. Because it's glass, we still need a little bit of light bending happening, but for the purposes of like rendering, just dial it back, make it clear. Okay, so now we can see the inner components much better. We can go back to the scene and try switching between diffuse and flat and see which one now looks much better after we have added the lighting. So you can select flat, and you can see it kind of pops out more than the diffuse. Alternatively, you can still select the diffuse and then go back to the texture, and you can add the brightness right here. You can add the brightness and the contrast. So you get kind of this of a matte effect. So you can choose between this. Let's see, we have here 2. If we double everything, this is what we have. So it depends on your taste. So you can have this or you can have flat. And this flat is gonna have each is 1. So we're not gonna add the brightness for the flat. So this is what it looks like. I'm gonna go with flat. Go with whichever option you find works best for you. All right, now the other thing we're going to change is you can go to the online library, which you can get by, you can either go online and search for the Keyshot library, or you can get it from here. There is the cloud. I don't know where it is. I don't use this much, so I kind of lose the idea of where things are. Oh, right here on the window, you have the cloud library, and then you're going to look for still linear polished, linear brushed, still linear brushed. I have downloaded mine here, so it's appearing on the downloads. So I need you to look for this stainless steel linear brushed on the cloud library, and if you get it, it's much better than the one we currently have here for the links and for the middle case, and also for the clasp covers. So we're gonna take it and apply it on the middle case. Stainless steel linear brushed. So you can see it's kind of different. We can switch back to the free camera so that we can be able to dolly in, and I can show you the difference in effects. So you can see this is what we had initially from the default library in Keyshot, and this is what we have from this linear brushed material. So this texture, I think, is much better. It represents what the original watch kind of looks like, the oyster steel. So we're gonna use this. We're gonna add it to the links as well as the clasp covers. I don't know why my dial keeps selecting itself. What does it want? What does the dial want? It's kind of acting up. So we're gonna get the linear brushed and also apply it to the links and the screws. And as you can see, that looks much better. Much better than what we had, and I like that a lot. We're gonna leave this to the stainless steel polished as well as the clasp blades. I think that looks good. And I like the reason why I left this at flat. I like these kind of reflections right here that are happening. So we had the word Rolex ingrained into the middle case right here. And I like the way the light is kind of hitting on to those words. We have Rolex, Rolex, Rolex going all the way around. So yeah, that's pretty much it. You can render this, or you can make any other adjustments that you want. For example, this minute hand and the hour hand, the gray is not kind of popping up. So you can try to look for another material that you feel is kind of more visible to you. Maybe the color green, you need it to match. Although it's supposed to match this green and this green. Lulu? Okay. So for me, I'm gonna leave it as that. I think I've showed you all basics of rendering in Keyshot, so you can pretty much play around with it, and you can try. Maybe I'm going to attach the open clasp. I'm going to attach both the closed and the open clasp, so you guys can try it out. And kindly, if you try it out and you post it somewhere, tag me in so I can see your work. It would be my pleasure to see what you guys are going to come up with, and I'm sure you can do much better job than this, especially those of you guys who have who have worked with Keyshot, it looks like we didn't add a material to the case back. We're going to add the polished one. It's usually a blend of the brushed and the polished, but I don't want to start splitting our surfaces in Keyshot because this is a NURBS. This is a NURBS card model, not a polygon, so it's kind of complicated. We're just gonna go with steel polished. So stainless steel polished, and we're gonna add that to the case back. Yep. So it's only this part that is supposed to be polished. The other parts are supposed to be brushed, but still works. It still works. So another case is where the oyster bracelet is polished at the middle and then these side ones are brushed. But so far the model, because we are designing the 2022 Air King model, the bracelet is, all of it is brushed. The only thing we didn't do when we were designing this watch was to taper this bracelet. So in real life, we don't have constant width of the bracelet. We have a tapered width. But the point was to learn part and assembly design as well as the basics of rendering. And I think I've done that. Thank you for listening. So you're going to select main camera when you're going to render. And you're going to select image. Then, as I said, we're going to switch back to photographic. And this is because I need to make this a little bit cold. So we're kind of going to drop the mid-tones because we need it to be a little bit cold because it's metal. So maybe remove some shadows from the places we didn't illuminate well. And then we're going to drop the mid-tones. Yeah, I'd say about 0.4, negative 0.4. We're gonna dial down on the whites because we don't have the whites. It's just very harsh highlights. I'm going to leave the highlights because there's the ones I added specifically. And then the lights, you can play around with this to see where you want your object to appear. But the thing is, we're not gonna do much work here. If you need to edit your image, you can edit it later on in Photoshop. That's basically what they do. And one thing that I didn't show you is if you wanted to have a ground and shadows, because remember we ignored our original ground. I'm pretty sure it's somewhere around this place. So what you can do, let's doctor in. What you can do is you can create a plane. You can add geometry and select a plane. And then you're going to have these options to basically move your plane. Hold on. So we have these options to move the plane, and you can select between translate, rotate, and scale. And first I'm going to snap it to the lower object. So it's not where the ground was, it's at the lower object. And then I'm going to translate it down. We can switch to the free camera so we can be able to check exactly where it is. I'm going to rotate like so. So I'm going to translate it down. So it's not touching our object, it's just below it. And then now we need to scale it up. So I'm going to switch to scaling, and we can start with the width. So you can see the plane right here. So remember, you're gonna need to render this plane. So you don't need to make it don't make it larger than it needs to. So we've got a plane right there. And then if you switch back to main camera, you can rotate the plane so that it doesn't block the view. So it should be about that point. And then switch to translate. And drop it down. Go back to the free camera. I need to see. Say about that point. So let's say that's our plane. So now you can add any material that you want to this plane. For example, let's dock this back. For example, we can select chrome. Chrome polished. And depending on the type of the material, you're going to get a different reflection. Okay, if you want a more rugged reflection, you can go for a textured or a rough surface. For example, if I make it rough, you can see we are having this kind of a not very clear reflection, which I think is more suitable than the perfectly clear one. So you can play around, you can look for different materials. You can also edit the properties of this plane just like any other object, the way you are editing any other object. And then you can position it, maybe increase it to fill this space so that it looks like it's sitting on a surface. You can also go online, say, and look for images that have been photographed, and you can steal some ideas right there on how to prop your image. Personally, I would recommend that you just render without the plane, and if you need any other objects added to it, you can do that in Photoshop, because you need to minimize the rendering time. Okay, so I'm not going to render this plane. It's right here. I'm not going to render that. The last thing is the render settings. So we're going to go to render or Control P. We're going to set this to 4K or any resolution that you prefer. And then for the options, the samples, I'm going to render a 256, 16 ray bounces, anti-aliasing 3, the shadow quality. We don't even have the shadows, but we have the self-imposed shadows on the object. For the global illumination, we're gonna set it to 3, and we're gonna select sharper texture filtering, and that's it. Then you're going to render your object. So this is the outcome, and I think I'm going to attach this image as well so that you guys can take it to Photoshop and you can maybe do a couple of tricks, and you can share that with me and others if you want. You can tag me and I would really appreciate. So that's all for today. Thank you for watching this tutorial. Thank you for coming along. If you watched the Catia version, thank you very much. I'll see you in the next series. You can leave some comments on any project that you want me to take up upon. I saw somebody commenting on image and shape, so I'll try to look up project on that, and see you guys in the next part.